Hello again, everyone. Now I welcome you to our final topic, which is the continuing education programs on ethico-moral practice in nursing. Now, why this matters to you, again, as a student nurses. We have often mentioned that ethics is not just a textbook subject. It guides every single choice that you will make at the bedside, in meetings, and when advocating for your team. The provisions in the Code of Ethics are your professional rule book. Okay? And you will be tested on them in licensure exams and held to them for your entire career. You will also face unfair rules, confusing situations, and hard choices. Now, this topic gives you clear tools to handle them with integrity. Continuing education is required to keep your license. You need to understand what you are entitled to and what your duties are. Okay? Now, by the end of our discussion, okay, you will not just know what these rules say, you will know exactly how to use them in real situations. Because ethical practice, you have to remember that ethical practice is learned and practiced. No one is born knowing all the answers. These standards apply to every nurse, in every role, in every healthcare setting. Okay? Now let's start with the basics. What ethical practice actually means and why it is the foundation of our profession. Okay? Um, so again, as I have mentioned a while ago, that the Code of Ethics is not just a list of rules. Ethics in nursing involves moral principles that guide professional practice and decision making. It is essential for providing quality patient care, maintaining trust, and ensuring professional integrity. Yes, ethical dilemmas are common in nursing practice. And yes, nurses must balance competing values and obligations, which can be very challenging. And the Code of Ethics provides a framework for ethical practice. And again, this is not just a list of rules. No? It is the promise we make to our patients, our country, and each other. It reflects our Filipino values like malasakit or genuine concern, pakikipagkapwa or shared dignity, and pananagutan or accountability, while meeting international standards. The Code of Ethics for nurses in the Philippines answers hard questions like how do we respect a patient's choice when their whole family wants to decide for them? What do we do when we don't have enough medicine or supplies? How do we advocate for fair play and safe staffing in our setting? Remember that the violation of this code can lead to fines, suspension, or revocation of your nursing license. Um, the Code of Ethics is updated regularly to match changes in Philippine laws and healthcare needs. Okay, so let's look at the official structure of this code, then break down every provision with clear explanations and examples. So the Code of Ethics for nurses, uh, are definitive standard for ethical nursing practice. Again, they guide nurses in making patient care decisions. and they provide framework for professional conduct. Now, in the American Nursing Association Code of Ethics, there are 10 core provisions grouped into three areas, which are duties to patient, duties to your practice and team, and duties to the nursing profession and public. Okay? So basically, this code of ethics is the official, universally accepted standard for ethical nursing practice. It is not just advice. It is the baseline for what is considered responsible professional conduct. It applies to you as a student, no, as a student nurse, and will be your guide as a licensed nurse. Okay? So again, in the American Nursing Association Code of Ethics, there are three clear groups covering every part of your work. First is the duties to your patient, what you owe to every person in your care, the duties to your practice and team, how you should act toward your colleagues, how you keep your own skills sharp, and how you shape your workplace. Lastly is the duties to the profession and public, what you owe to the community, how you help improve healthcare for everyone, and how you uphold your nursing reputation. Okay? Now, let's also discuss the Philippine Nursing Association or the PRC, Professional Regulation Commission Code of Ethics. Okay? The code is organized into four major parts naman. I did not anymore included it in the slide, but I will discuss it. So maybe at this point, you can get a copy. No, you can download it in the internet, the PRC Code of Ethics or the Philippine Nursing Association Code of Ethics. Okay, and you will see there that there are four major parts covering the nurses and the patients or clients. Second is the nurses and practice. Third are provisions for nurses and the profession. And fourth are provisions on nurses and society or country. And each part contains specific provisions defining your duties and standard. Okay? So, again, unlike the ANA code, our Philippine code is grouped around who you have a duty to, which are your patients, your practice, your profession, and our nation. This makes it easier to connect what you do to who you serve. Again, the four: patients, practice, profession, and our nation. And remember that no part is more than important than the others. You must balance all four in your work. And it applies everywhere, no, from a small barangay health station to a large tertiary hospital. Now, as you scan through the pages, no, of the Code of Ethics for Nurses here in the Philippines, let's start with part one, the nurses and the patients or the clients, the core of our work. Okay, these are provisions on. So part one, nurses and patients, are provisions on patients' rights and care. Okay, which the provision one is about respect for human dignity and rights. Okay, so we treat every person with respect, worth, and dignity, regardless of status, illness, belief, or background. Also, we uphold the patient's right to life, privacy, informed consent, and refusal of care. Okay, so that's provision one, respect for human dignity and rights. For the provision two, the primacy of patient interest. We put the patient's well-being and safety above all other interests. Okay? Provision three, which is the confidentiality of information, no, in the code of ethics that you are browsing here in the Philippines, no. Patient three is about confidentiality of information. We protect all private patient information. Share only with authorized persons and with consent. For the provision for professional responsibility to patients, we provide safe, competent, and compassionate care at all times. Okay? So let's have an example. How do we apply respect for human dignity and rights? Even if the family asks you not to tell the patient they have cancer, you must balance their wishes with the patient's right to know the truth. Also, we treat patients with HIV or AIDS, no? Or those with mental illness, or those from indigenous communities with the same respect as anyone else. Example, an elderly patient from a rural area is shy and soft-spoken. You speak clearly to them, not just their adult children, and explain procedures in simple Tagalog or their local dialect so they understand fully. How about the second provision, which is the primacy of patient interest? Um, since we said that we do what is best for the patient, no, it should come first. If the hospital tells you to discharge a patient too early to save money, speak up to protect their recovery. Okay? Do not let long lines or limited supplies make you rush care. Example, you notice a post-surgery patient still has high fever and pain, but the doctor already wrote a discharge order. You approach the doctor privately, share your observations, and ask them to review the patient before sending them home. Okay? How about in provision 3, the confidentiality of information? In confidentiality, again, we maintain that patient details are private. You can only share them with people directly involved in their care or if the law requires it. So, how do we practice it? We never discuss cases in the canteen, jeepney, or social media, even without names. If a relative asks for results, ask the patient first for permission before sharing. For example, a patient's mother calls asking for their HIV test result. You reply, I understand you are worried, but I need to ask your child's permission first before I can share that information because it is their legal right. Okay, so you can explain that to the mother. How about in the provision for the professional responsibility to patient? Um, because again, you are responsible for the care you give. So you must be skilled, honest, and compassionate. So how do you practice this or how do you apply it? You only do procedures you have been trained to do. If you make a mistake, admit it and help fix it right away. For example, you are not sure how to use a new portable ultrasound machine. You do not guess or try it alone. You ask your head nurse for training first so you do not harm the patient. So remember, Filipino values of family care are important, but they cannot replace the patient's own rights. And confidentiality is required by the Data Privacy Act of 2012 and the Professional Regulation Commission rules. Okay, so that's the part one. The uh, again, it is between the provisions between the nurse, for the nurses and the patients. Now let's try to scan part two, which is the nurses and practice. So these are provisions on practice and conduct. Okay. Provision 5 is about competence and continuing education. So nurses are expected to maintain high standards of knowledge and skill. They must be able to complete required continuing professional development or CPD units. Okay? Provision 6 is about ethical work environment. So we nurses promote a safe, fair, and respectful workplace. They should oppose harassment, bullying, and unsafe conditions. For provision 7, it is a provision about collaborating with the health team. So nurses must work honestly and cooperatively with doctors, midwives, barangay health workers, and other colleagues. Provision 8 is about integrity in practice. So avoid conflicts of interest. Do not accept bribes, favors, or gifts that affect your judgment. Okay? Now, let's delve deeper on each provision. So, how do we practice or apply provision 5, which is again competence and continuing education? Um, it simply means you must keep learning throughout your career. So, CPD is not just a license requirement, it is your duty to keep patients safe. So what are you supposed to do? You choose CPD courses that match your work, like maternal care if you work in a lying-in clinic. Share what you learn with your colleagues. Example, you attend a PNA training on proper infection control during dengue outbreaks. When you return to your unit, you teach like for example, you are employed in a rural health unit, you teach the barangay health workers and other nurses what you learned. Okay? For provision 6 about ethical work environment, all nurses deserve a safe, respectful workplace. And you also, as a nurse, must help create one for others. Now, how do you exactly do it? First is to report bullying, verbal abuse, or unsafe staffing to your supervisor or PNA chapter. Okay? Support new nurses and students instead of criticizing them. For example, a senior nurse shouts at a student nurse in front of patients. You approach the senior nurse privately later to say that this is not professional, and you also report repeated incidents to the head nurse. Okay? On provision 7, which is collaboration with the health team, because we all know that good care needs teamwork. So we respect every role, no, of each member of the healthcare team, from doctors to the barangay health workers. Now, how do we do it specifically? We listen to what the barangay health workers tell you about patients in the community. They know them best. Okay, the barangay health workers know these patients best in the community. So you share your observations clearly also with other providers. Example, a barangay health worker tells you a patient missed 3 checkups because they cannot afford fare. You work together to arrange home visits instead of scolding the patient. Okay? For provision 8, which is integrity in practice, we do not let personal gain change how we care for patient. So, do not ask for accept extra money or gifts from patient for standard care. Okay, again, do not ask for or accept extra money or gifts from patients for the standard care that we give. Do not refer patients only to clinics that pay you. Example, a grateful patient offers you a box of groceries as thanks. You thank them warmly but say, "It is my duty to care for you. Your recovery is the best gift I can receive." So remember that under Republic Act 9173 or Philippine Nursing Act of 2002, competence and teamwork are legal requirements. Even small gifts can be seen as influencing your professional judgment. Okay? Next is the part 3, which is between the nurses and the profession. What you owe to the nursing as a whole, nursing as a profession as a whole. Um, Under this part is our provision 9, no, which is upholding professional values. So we protect the reputation and dignity of the nursing profession. Also under this is provision 10, which is contribution to professional growth. So we help advance nursing practice, education, and research in the Philippines. Okay. For provision 11 is also under part 3, which is the respect for professional regulations. We follow all laws, PRC rules, and PNA standards governing nursing practice. Okay. So let's delve deeper into these 3 provisions. On provision 9, upholding professional values, your actions reflect on all Filipino nurses. So we act in a way that keeps public trust high. Now, how do you do it? Do not post complaints about patients or hospitals on social media, no, in a way that damages the nursing image. Also, be honest and professional in public and private. For example, you see a fake news post, there's this fake news post saying nurses are lazy. You share facts about nurse workloads and safety and avoid posting angry or disrespectful replies. For provision 10, which is contribution to professional growth, we help make nursing in the Philippines better for future generations. So how do we do it? We join PNA, or Philippine Nursing Association. No, participate in activities and share your ideas. You also mentor students and new graduates. For example, you volunteer to help teach nursing students during their community rotation. Sharing what you have learned, no, working in public health. So these are some of the ways, no, that you can do to help to contribute to professional growth under provision 10. Now for provision 11, the respect for professional regulations. Okay. We follow all laws that protect both nurses and patients. So how do we do it? We do not practice without a valid PRC license. Also, we report illegal practice or license misuse to the Board of Nursing. For example, you find out someone is working as a nurse without passing the licensure exam. You report this to PRC so patients are not put at risk. So remember, no, that the Philippine Nursing Act of 2002 is the legal basis for these provisions. And PNA is the accredited professional organization that represents Filipino nurses. All right? And finally, as you scan the document, part 4 is about the nurses and society or country, your duty to the nation and the community. And under this part are the provisions 12, 13, and 14. Okay? So remember provisions 1 and 4 is for the nurses and the patient or client. 5 to 8 are provisions for the nurses and the practice. 9 to 11 are provisions for nurses and the profession. And provisions 12 to 14 are provisions for nurses and society. Okay, so again, what is provision 12 all about? It's a service to community and country. So we prioritize service to the Filipino people, especially the poor, vulnerable, and underserved. Okay, provision 13 is about advocacy for health and social justice. So we speak up for for fair health policies, better access to care, and protection of the environment. Provision 14 14 is about emergency and national service. So we serve during disasters, epidemics, and national emergencies as needed. Okay? Now let's delve deeper on these three provisions. How do we do it? So first, for provision 12, which is service to community and country, again, nursing is a public service. You have a special duty to those who need care most but can least afford it. So how do we do it? We work with compassion for indigent patients. Do not give them lower quality of care just because they are indigent patients. Also, we participate in medical missions and rural health programs. For example, you volunteer for a free vaccination drive in a remote barangay, even though it is your day off. Okay, so that is service to community and country under Provision 12. For Provision 13, advocacy for health and social justice, we speak up for laws and policies that make healthcare fairer for all Filipinos. So, how do we apply it? We support bills on safe staffing, better nurse pay, and universal healthcare. Okay? We also speak out against corruption or unfair rules in health services. For example, you sign a Philippine Nurses Association petition asking PhilHealth to fully cover services for indigent patients in rural areas. Okay? Provision 14 is about emergency and national service. When our country needs you most, you serve. So how do you do it? You register as a volunteer with the Philippine Red Cross or Philippine Nurses Association Disaster Response Team. You follow official orders during outbreaks or typhoons. Okay, for example, during a strong typhoon, you report to your assigned evacuation center to help treat injuries and monitor health conditions. Okay, remember that this is the unique Filipino social mission of nursing, rooted in our history of service to the nation. And Republic Act 9173 encourages nurses to serve in underserved areas. Okay, so now we have covered all provisions no, in the Code of Ethics for nurses, for Filipino nurses. Okay, you can, from time to time, you can check these Code of Ethics and these provisions, no, if for you to master them. Okay. Now we have, since we have covered all provisions, to make big changes for patients and nurses, we use two powerful tools, and these are advocacy, no, and lobbying. Many people mix these two up. So let's clarify exactly what they are and how we use them. Okay? For advocacy, uh, it is meant to raise awareness. Okay? Encourage compliance with existing laws and PNA standards, support patients and colleagues. Okay? And to lobby means to engage with Congress, Senate, PRC, DOH to shape new laws and policies. Okay? So, the key groups, no, in lobbying and advocacy in nursing are the Philippine Nurses Association, the Board of Nursing, the Department of Health, no, and the Congress Committee on Health. Okay? So in the Philippines, advocacy means talking to your chief nurse about following the Department of Health safe staffing guidelines, educating patients about PhilHealth benefits, supporting colleagues facing facing unfair treatment. Okay? So, yun. So these are the ways we advocate. For lobbying, working with Philippine Nursing Association to meet senators or congressmen to pass the nurse compensation and benefits bill or to revise the CPD requirements. No, for example, PNA lobbying helped push for laws protecting nurses from workplace violence and setting minimum starting salaries for government nurses. So remember, you can advocate as an individual. No? Lobbying is most effective when done through an organization like the PNA. Okay? Now, how to engage and what are the successful examples of advocacy and lobbying in nursing? Okay? Um, there are practical steps no, that can be taken to engage in advocacy and lobbying. Uh, we write letters or emails to legislators. We participate no, in lobbying. We speak at public hearings whenever there is an opportunity. We join advocacy or networks. We use social media awareness and we meet with policymakers locally if there is an opportunity. Okay? Um, Successful examples include safe staffing laws, the anti-workplace violence rules, the fair continuing education requirements, and affordable education support. Okay? Uh, so you do not have to wait until you are a senior nurse to act. You can actually do these steps. So what are the practical steps here in the Philippines? We join the professional association. Once you are registered nurses or licensed nurses, you are you are expected no to join the Philippine Nurses Association. Groups like PNA no give you resources, training, and a voice when talking to officials. Actually, even students can join. No, so write or message your representatives. We tell them about problems that we see in clinical rotations, like lack of supplies or unfair rules. No? Real stories get attention. Do not forget that. Also, we share the facts responsibly. We post accurate information about healthcare issues on social media or talk to your friends and family about them. Also, we speak up in the school or in hospital. If you see unfair rules or gaps in support, bring them up no, to your supervisors. As a student, you bring them you tell your instructors about it. As a staff nurse, you go to your nurse manager or your head nurse. Okay? Um, yeah. So, uh, remember, no, that small actions add up. Many successful changes started when with one nurse speaking up. So you have more power than you think. Your voice matters. Okay? Now, continuing education is a key part of professional growth. So it must follow no, the same ethical standards we use in patient care. So let's look at how. Um, Continuing education rules should never be a one size fits all or make life harder for nurses. They must follow these four core ethical principles. So again, patient autonomy. Training should match what you need for your specific role, not just what is easiest for the hospital to organize. Example, a community health nurse needs training on home visits and infectious disease control, or an ICU nurse needs training on ventilators and critical care. Continuing education programs should offer both, no? Not force everyone to take the same course. Okay? Now for beneficence, what it means in continuing education for ethical moral practice. The training must actually help you give better care to patients. It should not be just busy work or paperwork. For example, a course on new diabetes guidelines helps you teach patients better. Or a course on general office rules that has nothing to do with the patient care is not ethical continuing education. Okay? Because it does not benefit you. Okay? Next is non-maleficence. What does it mean? Continuing education requirements should not create extra stress. It should not create financial burden or hardship for nurses. For example, requiring single parents to attend 8-hour in-person classes on weekends causes unnecessary hardship, and this should be avoided. Okay? Now, for justice, training should be available to everyone, no matter where you work or how much money you have. For example, rural nurses should have access to the same quality online training as nurses in Manila. Low-income nurses should not have to pay thousands of pesos for required courses. Remember, you have the right to ask for fair, relevant, continuing education programs. It is not just something you have to accept without question. Bad continuing education rules hurt nurses, and that hurts patients too. Okay? Now let's look at real dilemmas around continuing education and how to resolve them fairly. This case is about the mandatory continuing education requirements. In this case scenario, uh, the hospital requires 20 hours of ethics training annually on personal time with no pay. Nurses argue this is unfair after 12-hour shift. Now, the conflict is between justice versus professional obligation, or fair treatment versus keeping skills current. Now, what is the resolution, the proposed resolution for this case? Uh, we advocate for paid work hours or stipends for required training. Okay? And the justification is that justice requires fair treatment. Nurses should be compensated for work-related education. Okay? Um, this is actually a very common dilemma. The hospital says the training is required for your job, but says you must do it on your own time for free. Okay? So, indeed, that is an ethical conflict, no, between the professional obligation and justice. Okay, so again, how exactly do you resolve this? Although we have mentioned already that we advocate for paid work hours or stipends for required training, we can uh, we can talk, no, to our colleagues and bring this up as a group to the manager, because groups are heard more clearly. We also ask for paid time during your shift to complete the training, or a small stipend to cover your time and costs. Now, if the hospital refuses, we raise this issue with the nursing association. They can help advocate at the higher level. Okay, for example, a group of nurses at a government hospital asked for online training they could complete during slow periods of their shifts. The hospital agreed and also started paying a small allowance for any extra hours needed. So remember, no, you can advocate for fair treatment without being unprofessional. Unpaid mandatory work is not a standard practice. You have the right to push back or refuse. Okay? Now, another big problem is when rules focus only on how long you sit in training instead of what you actually learn. Okay, so this is a case about quality versus quantity. The state requires, no, in this scenario, the state requires 40 continuing education hours annually. Nurses pick the easiest, shortest courses just to meet the number. No real learning happens. Okay? Now, the conflict is between excellence versus practicality, meaningful learning versus meeting requirements. So, the, the proposed resolution is that we advocate for quality-based continuing education, focusing on learning outcomes, requiring evidence of application, promoting evidence-based learning. We also work with boards to develop standards and emphasizing quality over hours. We also suggest portfolio-based assessment of ethical competence. And the justification is that continuing education should improve practice, not just fulfill requirements. Okay? When rules only count how many hours you spend in training instead of what you learn, everyone loses. Nurses just pick the easiest, fastest courses to check the box, and no one actually gets better skills. Okay? So, specifically, we advocate for rules that ask you to show what you can do, not just how long you sat in class. For example, instead of 40 hours of generic training, you could submit a report on how you used new skills in your work. Okay? Also, we ask for courses that are actually relevant to your practice, so you learn something useful even in short sessions. We also support policies that recognize on-the-job learning and experience as valid continuing education. No? Because sometimes on-the-job training are not counted, no, as valid continuing education. Like for example, some regions now let nurses count time spent mentoring students or leading quality improvement projects as continuing education hours. This rewards real growth instead of just attendance. So remember, learning something new no matters more than checking a box. Quantity requirements do not guarantee quality. They often just create busy work. Okay? And finally, let's look at the rules that become so strict. No, they push skilled nurses out of the profession entirely. So this is the case about continuing education and licensure. Barrier versus quality assurance. State board increases continuing education requirements from 20 to 40 hours annually, including specific ethico-moral practice modules. Experienced nurses with decades of ethical practice feel burdened. Some consider retirement. New graduates struggle to afford programs while paying student loans. No? And rural facilities fear losing staff. Okay? Now, the ethical conflict is clearly a conflict between quality assurance versus access to care. Uh, Ensuring competence versus creating barriers to practice. Now, the proposed resolution, no decision, is to advocate for equitable continuing education requirements, recognizing experience through portfolio assessment, no, and tiered requirements based on practice setting. Also, providing financial assistance. Suggest competency-based, no, evaluation instead of time-based requirements. And the justification is that continuing education should ensure competence without creating unnecessary barriers to practice. Okay? Uh, for example, when requirements were raised sharply in one province, nurses advocated for a 2-year transition period, free online courses, and credit for experience. So this stopped many nurses from leaving the profession while still keeping standards high. Okay? Now remember, rules should help nurses improve, not punish them or push them out. Patient safety depends on having enough skilled nurses, not just strict rules. Okay? So, what does a truly fair, effective continuing education program look like? Okay? Now, a good continuing education program works for nurses, not the other way around. It includes these key features: accessible formats, like for example, online options, recorded sessions, and flexible scheduling. So you can learn around your shift or family duties. They should also be affordable, free or low cost for all nurses, with no hidden fees. They should also be relevant. Courses are made for different settings. So rural nurses learn what they need, and hospital nurses do too. Okay? Also, they must be supportive. Extra help for nurses who need it, like extra time to complete courses or simple language for those who need it. For example, a National Nursing Association offers free online courses that you can finish at your own pace, no, with subtitles and local languages, and topics tailored to rural and urban practice. Now remember, accessible does not mean less rigorous. It means possible for everyone. If a program does not meet these standards, it is not fair or effective. And if you need to advocate for better continuing education rules, there is a framework, no, to make your case strong. Um, First is you have to be clear about the problem instead of saying this is unfair. Say this 20-hour unpaid training or unpaid requirements makes it impossible for nurses with children to complete training. So also check the code of ethics, point to the specific principle that applies, no, like justice, non-maleficence, or professional growth. Also look at who is affected. Will this hurt rural nurses more, new graduates, or nurses with disabilities? Next is to offer a solution. Leaders listen better when you give them options. Like we could use online courses instead of in-person or face-to-face classes. Or we could give paid time off. Okay? Also check how it works. After changes are made, see if they actually help and adjust as needed. Remember, facts and clear arguments are more powerful than complaints. Okay? And referring to professional standards makes your case harder to ignore. There are, of course, many support resources, no, that you can access uh, uh, for whatever you're advocating or lobbying for. No, the Hospital Ethics Committee, the Professional Nursing Associations, the state nursing boards, your mentors, and experienced colleagues. Okay? Yun. And do not forget, even senior nurses need support. You are not expected to know everything alone. Your professional association is your strongest ally for a system wide change. Okay? Now, let's wrap up all the key lessons from this final topic. Ethical practice is fundamental to nursing profession. It is the heart of nursing. No, ethical practice is the heart of nursing. Advocacy and lobbying create better systems for patients and nurses. Ethical dilemmas are common, no? So nurses must know how to navigate complex situations. Next is that continuing ethics education is essential for growth. Also, the Code of Ethics provides framework for decision making. And there are four ethical principles that guide nursing practice. And these are again autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. Next is that moral evaluation helps analyze ethical decisions. And lastly, we seek support from ethics committees and colleagues and also professional organizations. So, ethics is indeed not an extra part of nursing, it is what makes nursing a profession. You have the power to change things for the better for your patients, your team, and yourself. And the code of ethics is your lifelong guide. Use it every day. Never stop learning and never stop standing up for what is right. Okay? Now, as final reflection, I want you to ask yourselves, which provision of the code of ethics will I focus on practicing most closely in my next clinical rotation? Right? On that note, I thank everyone again for joining me in this session.